Think of all the villains you have grown up with watching animated movies. These are some, but I would imagine you would find some, if not many of these villains goated. There's discourse that modern villains are not as good or that they're quite soft, and I decided to watch literally hours upon hours of movies this decade, the decade prior, and the decade prior in the 90s to answer that question. Are today's cartoon antagonists soft? And does that mean they're not as great? Well, to answer that, I'll show you two characters who are more similar than people think, but they embody the two ends of the spectrum. Okay, you and me, let's do a thought exercise. If the discourse for some is that modern movie protagonists are too soft, what does soft mean here? I'll flash some ways that people use the word soft on the screen and you tell me which ones fit what you would say. Well, there are 4 clues to the difference between a soft and a tough antagonist.
When your heartless mother abandoned you as a child, anyone else would have drowned you. And this is my thanks for taking you in and raising you as my son?
I'm sorry, sir.
This is Frollo, reprimanding Quasimodo within the Hunchback of Notre Dame, using a lie. He claims that Quasimodo's mother abandoned him while Frollo generously took him in, while knowing the truth that she did everything she could to protect him, literally from someone like Frollo who abhors his kind. And that had Frollo had it his way, Quasimodo, as a child, would have been dropped in a well, suffering the same fates as his birth mother. This is not a person who even tried to not be evil at the beginning of the movie.
Water. Keep an eye on them.
You splash it, you buy it!
This is Ember chasing out a few water elements out of the store because she was taught by her father, Bernie, to distrust water elements. Bernie, like Frollo, is a character who is built off of not liking another kind of being and influences the movie because of his views. But there's a huge difference. Bernie, upon entering Elemental City, would largely be excited to live a new life there. And as you see on screen, there are several parts of the beginning where he was turned away and treated poorly by the other elements, including water elements. This is a character who tried to be respectful and became this way through nuanced elements. Pun intended. Bernie is given a sympathetic backstory to explain why he doesn't like a specific kind, whereas Frollo was not, which gives him less room to be forgiven. So if that's the first clue, what's the second clue? There's a clear reason why, despite being similar, they're treated vastly different in their movies. Upon Quasimodo sneaking out to enjoy the Festival of Fools, he did not get help from his so-called caretaker because Frollo never wanted Quasimodo to leave the sanctuary of the church. This woman, Esmeralda, would free Quasimodo, not listening to Frollo's orders, and be hunted down to be arrested. Now, how do you think Frollo would treat the town in pursuit of this woman? Well, when hearing that this family did allow travelers to rest, but genuinely doesn't know where Esmeralda is, he would be a tad annoyed. The ironic part is that I'm not even exaggerating that much. He burned a home in an attempt to murder a family to set an example for the rest of the town. If he's not above one of the cruelest acts, it shows you the type of person he could be. Now contrast that against Bernie meeting Wade, a water element, and deciding to intentionally harm him as well.
You really food inspector?
As far as you know, yeah.
Then inspect this!
Dad.
That shoots.
This is Bernie giving Wade something clearly too hot for him to eat. After Wade, who is an inspector for Elemental City, says that he's specifically a food inspector, because at this point in the movie, Bernie is frustrated about a water leak that is harming his home and his business. While Wade absolutely can't handle the temperature the food is at, but thinks it's really good once you add water to cool it down, Bernie takes this as a great insult towards himself and his kind, banning Wade from the shop. This is a major point in the movie, but it's not even close to attempted murder. So while Frollo's actions are very dark and grim, Bernie's actions are lighter in comparison. Now the third clue is probably the easiest clue to get wrong. I know this because I did get it wrong. Initially. Now that you've seen Frollo, you may ask, why? Why go through all of this trouble? While it may be great to hear it from the man himself, I think it's better to hear it from the person he influenced his entire life.
You're not like other. They are evil.
Who told you that?
My master, Frollo. He raised me.
All throughout his life, he was convinced that people like Esmeralda are evil. He'd constantly tell Quasimodo that he was malformed and a monster. Do you think this man has room for nuance? He only raised Quasimodo because he feared for how his own soul would fare. This is the same man who casually gave suggestions on how to torture prisoners before speaking to Phoebus for the first time. Now with Bernie, how much nuance is there for why he doesn't like the other elements that much?
I gave my father the buck soul, the big bow. It is the highest form of respect, but my father did not return the bow. They never got to see all of this. They didn't get to see that I never forgot we are fire. This is burden I still carry.
When you factor in moving to Elemental City to start a new life was such a huge risk that his parents did not respect his decision, and ever since he had to carve out a rundown section of the city just to survive because the other elements didn't welcome him with open arms because of their differences, it becomes more understandable, at least a bit, as to why he doesn't like the other elements, especially water types. It's water that's destroying his business, and if his home goes, perhaps he may have to go back and show his parents that they were right to think that he made the wrong decision in the first place. Bernie loves Ember and doesn't treat Ember like how his father treated him. So I shall ask you, is Frollo evil? Oh, 100%. There's very little room for debate. But is Bernie evil? No, not at all. And part of what I got wrong initially when looking through these movies was that I was looking for that nuance with tough antagonists like Frollo when they're not there, and I would argue they're better off that way. Now the last clue is the biggest tell for tough and soft antagonists. If a tough antagonist is evil, does evil, and leaves very little or no room for change, what is the best outcome for them? For a character filled with pure hatred, an ego who feels no real reason to change, sometimes you can't talk things out. Some people in the world do go too far and won't stop until they get everything they desire. Sometimes it is their greed that creates their own demise. Frollo does not get a happy ending, and more importantly, Frollo doesn't deserve a happy ending. He did not change in the movie meaningfully to entertain forgiveness. Would you say the same about Bernie? Within Elemental, he had a large distrust for Wade, but Ember would admit that she loves Wade, and he helped her realize that she doesn't want to run the store like her father. She wants to take up glassmaking, but was afraid to disappoint her father who did so much and sacrificed so much just for them to get to this point.
The shop was never the dream. You were the dream.
I loved him, Dad.
Would you say this character deserves death the same way as Frollo? Of course not. It would be a severe reaction to someone who changes and tries to understand a different perspective outside of his own. The only death here is the death of the Bernie who hated all water people. With tough antagonists, they don't often get a happy ending. They've done a lot of wrong and have to pay for it, and usually, it's the ultimate price. With soft antagonists, they come around to understanding. Typically, they get a less severe ending, and oftentimes finding better ground with the protagonist. Now, revisiting that list to describe tough and soft antagonists, there is one definition that I don't co-sign at all. It's that one there. And it's easy to show why.
My friend smells amazing.
Sorry. I'll make it up to him. Chicho, Guido.
What are you doing?
Luca!
Alberto!
Just a little bath.
No.
It's fun.
No!
This is Ercole. Apologies if I'm butchering that. The main antagonist in Luca, a 2020s Pixar movie often criticized for having a very specific art style. Now, would you say that he is closer to Bernie or closer to Frollo? Well, the answer is simple, and it's probably going to shock about half of you. Throughout the movie, Ercole is shown to be a bully. He inspires fear in the children around him, as he's much older and takes advantage of that. The movie revolves around a race that has a Vespa as a grand prize, with Luca and Alberto wanting to win so they can explore the world. Problem is, Ercole has won 5 times, and doesn't plan to stop anytime soon. Even worse, the town is known to hunt sea monsters like Luca and Alberto, who are undercover until they can't be anymore, to which at this point, Ercole does attempt to hunt them down, partially because of his hatred for them and sea monsters, but also because of his selfish need to guard his reputation. He does not get a good ending, with his henchmen, so to speak, even turning their backs on him when they realize how much of a jerk he is. So he was a jerk throughout, he didn't have a lot of wiggle room to explain why he's that way, he tries to kill the protagonist, and he doesn't get a happy ending. That sounds a lot closer to Frollo than it does to Bernie. Ercole is a tough antagonist, even if the movie has a softer atmosphere compared to Notre Dame. And to prove it in the opposite way, let's take a movie that you'd practically never hear any complaints about the art style with.
Cobra Bubbles. You don't look like a social worker.
I'm a special classification.
Did you ever kill anyone?
We're getting off the subject.
This is Cobra Bubbles from Lilo & Stitch, who serves as a social worker and antagonist within the story. While he looks more intimidating than Bernie, Ercole, and even Frollo, is that enough to be a tough antagonist? Well, ask yourself. Is Mr. Bubbles a jerk in this movie? He's been sent to ensure that Lilo has the best upbringing that he could provide, and from his perspective, Nani isn't doing a great job. Lilo was able to lock herself within the house, Nani lost her job later in the episode, and they were put in a near-death experience for things justifiably out of their control. All he wants is for Stitch to be a model citizen, and for Nani to get a job, and just get things back on course for Lilo. And what actions does he take when he sees that things aren't working out?
It's just that.
I know you're trying, Nani, but you need to think about what's best for Lilo. Even if it removes you from the picture.
He speaks in a calm but authoritative tone. His motivations are reasonable. He's not a jerk. He gives chances, and towards the end of the movie, when things do work out, he's developed a bond with the family. While a tough character, Cobra Bubbles is a soft antagonist. The art style basically doesn't determine the type of antagonist you get, which I thought was obvious, but it's a common talking point with Pixar's latest movies. So are people correct in saying that today's antagonists and villains are softer than before? Well, I mapped out a large section of movies within the last 10 years and retrieved their antagonists or villains, as you see on the screen. Now, using the rules we had earlier, I'll map out the tough antagonists on the left and the soft antagonists on the right. What do you think the outcome will be? Half and half? Well, let's see. Huh, that's surprising, even for me. I thought I would have been going into this video proving that we're overwhelmingly having more soft antagonists, even in extending it out with Bowser, Petey, Dr. Sara, Death, Evelyn. I find there's so many on both sides that even if there is an imbalance, the ratio isn't that lopsided. Last year, a lot of people threw in the towel on Pixar because Elio underperformed next to movies such as K-pop Demon Hunters, and the community went wild thinking about why. And some people may point to movies such as Elio and Wish, who had soft antagonists, the latter of which transitioned from being a soft to tough antagonist mid-movie, and it didn't perform well. However, in that same period of time, we would have movies like Encanto and Inside Out 2, both of which performed incredibly well with soft antagonists. If people were tired of soft antagonists, not only would these movies not do well, but we would be bored of these stories, which the data doesn't support. Also, personally, I enjoy other movies such as Turning Red, Dogman, even The Wild Robot. The fox is a soft antagonist after all, and other movies with soft antagonists. Would these movies work better if they had a tough antagonist instead? No. I would argue they'd be worse. If you put a character like Frollo in Elemental, he'd be funny, but it wouldn't work. And if you put a character like Birdie in Notre Dame, That wouldn't work either. So then you may ask, if movies are doing well commercially and critically with soft antagonists, and I like a lot of movies with soft antagonists, then why should we be worried at all? That's when it hit me. I think we haven't been highlighting the tough antagonists enough, and people are missing what we used to have front and center. But why do people like tough antagonists so much, and what are we missing out on if we stop getting them or stop highlighting them? We miss out on the spectacle. Within Neza, the Dragon King is awesome, and how he commands so much presence and influences Ao Bing is a great part of the movie. Ao Bing would serve more as a soft antagonist within the first Neza because he became conflicted over the true nature of who he is and how we should treat Neza, but the Dragon King was consistent. Because we aren't spending a lot of time figuring out if Kingpin's motivations within Into the Spider-Verse for wanting the Collider on max despite the risk of it developing a black hole that'll form and destroy everything is nuanced or not, we can focus on the other characters that benefit from having that development. Within Into the Spider-Verse, every scene he's in is filled with great action, great dialogue, and despite being a character who doesn't change much within the movie, he serves as this wall, metaphorically and physically, for Miles to overcome.
What was that? Kill that guy.
We miss out on escapism. I'm sure you, or someone that you know, knows a character like Ming, or like Queen Eleanor in Turning Red and Brave, respectively, in their life. So it can hit a little too close to home for you to fully immerse yourself into. But not many people know a Hopper. Within A Bug's Life, while there are themes within the movie, Hopper is so evil, you don't need to think about relatability. He's a grasshopper who wants to keep the order of how things were with the ants purely because it benefits him. Not many people know a Guima from K-pop Demon Hunters who did not want to discuss the nuances of their situation and simply wanted to feed on souls and have demons suffer. If anything, a lot of the nuance went to Jinu, who struggled between the influence of Rumi and Guima. It allowed you to fully immerse yourself into the movie without thinking about the relatability of the antagonists or the relatability of the antagonist points. They can just be evil because they're evil.
That's funny. I thought for a moment you actually believed you could be free.
Don't forget about our deal, Chino, because I can turn those voices up.
Or they can be gone.
Don't think you can escape what you are.
We miss out on simplicity. While Flo didn't have a traditional villain per se, the environment acted as the antagonist. You didn't need to think about anything other than how is this cat going to survive in these circumstances? And that allowed the movie to really go all in, 100%, on making a fantastic adventure. When Roz was accepted by the Force within the Wild Robot, Vantra served as a way for everything to be put to the test. Vantra didn't need to be complex. Vantra just needed to be mean and represent Roz's old world. Given how complex Death was in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and how the story had debatably 4 opposing forces here at least, Jack Horner benefits from being simple. His scenes are very easy to digest, and it's easy to understand why you shouldn't root for him. Now, if you've gotten this far, you've gotten examples of great soft antagonists, great tough antagonists to see that even if it's equal or maybe it's lopsided one way or the other, the issue isn't the villains, it's the presentation. Soft antagonists show us that some of the wrong in the world can be solved with more compassion, understanding, and listening. But tough antagonists show us that some wrong just needs to be destroyed before it gets even worse. Now, speaking of villainy, I suppose, another character people get wrong is Kane, who I spoke about in this video here that you can check out.